what I just want to do is kind of go through a quick day in the life of an accounts payable module. We'll talk about some features and high level stuff. We'll enter an invoice and enter a check and kind of see how things flow. It's pretty straightforward. I mean, accounts payable, the great thing about accounts payable is there's a set of rules for accounting. Accounts receivable, accounts payable, and everybody follows certain sets of rules for things. It's just how you get there and how easy is it to do those certain things that makes the difference between the software products. So what you're looking at, if you haven't seen this before, this is the Rover login screen. I should go back here. This is the Rover login screen, and what you see when you log in is all of the modules and all of the procedures and all the reports that you are secured to use. As security gets turned on and as things get secured out, they disappear off the menu and drop off for you. So when you log in, you only see the things that you need to work with. And then each module is broken into 3 sub pieces: all the data entry procedures, all the reports and inquiries, and all what we call processes. This can be a check run. This can be an ACH process. This can be a positive pay transmission, those kind of background processes that go on that aren't just strictly data entry procedures. When we get into the third level, what we're doing is we're sorted alphabetically by a command name. So all of the procedures, we give you the description that most people give you, but we take it an extra level and we give you the name of the procedure for each of these processes. So you get familiar with the naming conventions. A dot control is a control setting procedure. A dot E is an entry. When we get over to reports and inquiries, dot R is a report. A dot F is a form. A dot Q is an inquiry. A dot L is a label. So you get catch on pretty quickly for how things work. Plus, what you know is by reading this, what's in front of the dot is the file name being acted on. So AP is the name of the accounts payable file. Checks is the name of the checks file. Vendor is the name of the vendor file. So when you want to do things, it'll just be easier to find. And when you want to use one of the report writers that we deliver with a system, if you want to create your own reports, then you know that what's in front of the dot is the file name, and you don't have to go looking it up and try to go through the drop down and try to interpret the X1053 is the vendor file. It's really straightforward and obvious. So I'm just going to go through a few control settings. We do have an accounting control screen where you can define your aging periods for accounts receivable and your aging periods for accounts payable. We don't store anything in an aged or a bucketed format. It's all stored in date event order. So you change these on demand, and then you rerun the aging reports and everything's automatically re-aged. So it just depends on, do you want 30, 60, 90? Do you want to go all the way out to 120? I just showed you a couple different versions here so you'd understand there's a difference. There are some activity screens in the vendor inquiry. This basically says I want to see 2,000 days worth of activity. You could set this to 100 days. You could set this to 9,999, so you get a whole bunch. There's some commission calculations, sales updates, things like that. There are tabs across the top of any screen that has multiple pieces of information. So besides just the basic information, we want to know all of our bank accounts that we're dealing with. We want to have AR collection status codes. We want to have vendor type information, and then change history on this accounting tab. So this keeps track of any change that was made, when it changed, what date and time changed. And there are changes on control screens, vendor screens, transaction screens, invoicing screens, all of that have change history. So that same set of rules applies to everything. There is a control screen specific to accounts payable where you set up your default accounts payable account number, your default freight account number, your default terms, all of these things. And you can set these up and then override them transaction by transaction if you decide, but most people set it up one time and not have to worry about it anymore. And then from a payment standpoint, you can set up, do I want to print checks, where I'm going to print the actual magnetic codes and we're going to do it on blank stock, or are we going to print pre-printed forms, or are we going to disable check printing, or are we going to do ACH payments, automatic transmission payments of those ACH, or positive pay transmission. So you set all these up depending on what you want to do and whether or not you do ACH payments. The next thing to set up would be the vendor So if we set up a vendor and we say, okay, it opens up the vendor and what's the vendor number? Everything's got a number. If you know the number, great, you can type it in. If you don't, you can right click or double click and you can look it up by name, address, city, state, phone, or contact name. Or I could type in all if I know that those 3 letters are contained in any of the names, and it'll show me all of the ALLs. I can pick that one, and boom, it pops up. So I've got a name, I've got a type code for which, if you remember just a minute ago, we saw the type codes were blank in the control record, which means you can enter anything you want. There's no restriction. If this is an approved vendor, address, city, state, zips. You can have a separate remit address for check purposes. If it's the same address, you don't have to put it again. You just leave this blank and it defaults back to the main address. And all the basic information about a customer. Now, a couple of quick notes. When you see fields like this where there's one box, certain number of characters wide, that's a single valued field to us. If you see a box where there's a scroll bar off to the right, that means it's an unlimited field, which means you virtually have an unlimited number of lines of addresses, unlimited lines of remit addresses, unlimited number of notes. And as we go through more things, you'll see that scroll bar off to the right of a lot of fields. And that just means you have a virtually unlimited number of entries you can make. And I say virtually because in the address field, you kind of want to be careful you don't go beyond 7, because most window envelopes won't support printing that, and you'll lose the city, state, and zip at the bottom, depending on how you're printing. So we've got we do 1099 forms, and you could say whether or not you're opening this up and which box number do we want to hit for this vendor. If you want vendor rating, you can do a 100% quality or a 100% delivery or a 50-50 split. In this case, we're rating this vendor 70% on delivery performance and 30% on quality. So depending on the vendor and the type of product you're getting from them, that mix may change vendor by vendor. Now, once we get into the vendor entry screen, the basic information is on the general tab, and you can see these tabs across the top. We have contacts. You can have an unlimited number of contacts. Again, scroll bar off to the right. Means you can have an unlimited number of contacts, each with their own name, title, email, address, multiple phone numbers and extensions. And there are multiple emails, by the way, that show. We're just showing you the first one here. If I go out and open and look at this, I can look at this contact record, and I can see this is how it's set up. This is I have more than one customer this person's related to. I could have multiple email addresses, multiple phone numbers, etc., multiple notes, and all kinds of information about this contact if I want to keep track of that. I could also have contact logs, which is where I could say, I talked to this person, I told them I'd pay, or I told them that we're disputing something, whatever it may be. Anything where you want somebody else to be able to bring this up and see this information, you can put this right in here. And they called to change PO. So if I open that one, I get all the information, spoke to Rachel to get faster delivery, called to change PO. You can see based on the details being a scroll bar, you could get pretty verbose in here and have a lot of information available to you. And you can schedule a follow-up, like, hey, I want to remind myself in 2 days to follow up with this vendor to make sure everything's okay. I should also mention this opened up vendor entry. And if I am in a screen and I get a call or I need to do something else, you can minimize this screen. It goes right down here. And you can go off and open any other screen. You can even open another vendor, have multiple vendors open, and it opens the second screen. You can have 20 screens open, and you're still only one connected user to the system. You're occupying only one license. So that's a pretty powerful tool. You don't have to quit in the middle of entry. You don't have to bail on something you're halfway through, and you don't have to save it halfway done. Or hopefully remember to go back, fix it later. So if I go back to vendor entry, I've got attachments where I can attach documents. I can attach contracts. I can attach maps. I can attach purchase orders, anything I pretty much want to. The payment information based on ACH, routing numbers, bank account numbers, account types, etc. I think I might have picked somebody that's got garbage in their ACH number. Let me pick somebody else that hopefully has got a better. Yeah, so to be more like this, it would be information that you'd put in here and their email address, which has other information. And then there's change history. Every time something's changed, system will track the change on the vendor. So vendor one-time setup. And so then after the vendor setup, now I've got invoices. Invoice entry is probably the next logical thing. Invoices can come a couple different ways. When I go into invoice entry, I might be getting an invoice that came in off a purchase order receipt, or I might be getting an invoice that's non-purchase order related, like a phone bill or a rent bill, or anything else that's non-PO related. And that'll be, if it came in from a PO, it's going to have an AP ID already assigned. So you're going to be able to look up by invoice or PO or all items for a vendor, or open items for a vendor, or look up by invoice amount or payment amount. Or if I know that this came in on 6844, that was the PO number, I can put that in, and it says, okay, -1 is the receipt we made. The AP ID is the same as the receipt number, which is the same as the PO number with a -1 for the first receipt, a -2 for the second receipt. So it's really pretty simple to follow this thing through. What this does, when it comes over from a purchase order, we know the vendor, we know the PO, we know the status is accrual, and we also know on the line items all of the parts that were received. This is the part that was received, this was the standard cost, the original cost, the quantity, and the actual cost that was on the PO. So this is the PO cost. And then this is the total extended cost. And because, and I'm cart's ahead of the horse here, but I'm working on a standard cost demo system. So it booked the receipt at standard, but then booked the variance as an AP variance account number to get the number that that matched. So I had a standard cost of $1.50, so that's what the material came in at, but the actual cost has to get booked, so a purchase price variance occurs. You can use standard costing, you can use actual costing by lot, and you can use average costing, which means the real-time average costing as you receive more parts. We do track registers, and this register file, and this is a longer conversation, but this is the GL interface file. So every time a record is saved that has an account number / amount combination, it creates a set of register records, in this case the AP register, and it created a debit to the 602 account number, which is probably accounts payable accrual. Actually, I'd have to check that.
It's probably inventory, no?
Yeah, purchases clearing account number. Sorry, we hit the inventory when we received it and credited purchases clearing. Then we debit purchases clearing here and hit accounts payable accrual and the PPV account number. So we hit all these numbers, and so this is how we keep track of what's going on in the general ledger. So every time that somebody brings up this accounts payable record and makes a change to it, nothing changes these first records. It adds more adjusting records to it, so to keep everything in balance. And that's how we can interface to the GL even once the accounts payable records change. It makes it really easy to track that information. I'll show you a register report in a couple minutes. So basically, I would say, okay, so I've got 1343. Okay, so basically all I have to do to invoice this when it comes in, when the paperwork comes in, is I put in the invoice number that's on the paperwork. I put in the date of the invoice, which I don't know, it could be -15. The register date is the date it hits the GL. Those may be the same, but if you get an invoice that's dated 3/31 and you've already closed March by the time you get it, you can hit April with the GL information, but you can hit March for the agent report for the vendor to keep track of it that way. So that's going to be your choice on how you do it. And then you put in the amount, and it's 1443.25. So that's the amount that was on the invoice. All I have to do is put that information in. It calculates balance dues and amounts to pays and dates to pay, etc., based on terms codes. And all you have to do is hit save, and out of balance. So now I have to determine why I'm out of balance. Basically, the line item totals don't equal the 1443 amount I put in. So there's a couple reasons this could be. One is the vendor changed the price on you, and now you got to notify purchasing and find out if that's okay. The other is, more than likely, maybe I just missed $100 worth of freight at the bottom of the invoice. So I add in the $100 worth of freight. Now I hit save, and now it's saved as a record, and I'm done. It's an invoice record. There's no follow-up posting. There's no overnight processing. It's a real-time accounts payable record ready to be paid. And if I look at it again, I can bring it up, and you can see it's no longer an accrual. It's an open record. So the other way to handle invoices are, I might get a rent or a services or something that's not coming from a purchase order. So I just leave the AP ID blank. It'll assign a new, consider this the voucher number kind of thing. It'll assign the next sequential number when I save it. I can hit Alamo Auto Supplies, that I can look at their invoice number, or if it's just I don't have an invoice number, but it's a date. I can just put a date as my invoice number, because you need to have something, but it doesn't matter what it is, and it could just be it's $100. And now, very simply, I can distribute this right here on the screen. I don't have to go to the line items to do it, although I could. But if I just want to distribute the whole $100 against an expense account number, and I'll hit auto expense. And I can distribute the whole $100 to that account, or I can distribute $50 to one and $50 to another. As long as it totals 100, I'm good and I'm done. You can put in notes. You can flag this as a 1099 record. If the vendor had been flagged as a 1099, it would automatically pop here. And then all I have to hit is save, and it gives me the next sequential AP ID. And, I entered 3 or 4 pieces of information, and I'm done with this invoice. So it's pretty straightforward. So that's the accounts payable entry screen. Now, if I look at, before we go on to checks, if I go on to the reports, we have a whole series of reports. We have a debit form, invoices, items awaiting invoices, which would be all your accrual records, items on hold, aging report. So we'll look at a couple of these. If I look at the aging report, it brings up a typical report driver in our system, and it comes up and says, okay, where do I want to put this? I want to send this to preview on screen. So we'll leave it there for right now, and we'll go through this and say we're going to run detail form, and all I have to do is hit run process. If I put in one vendor, I'll only get the agent report for that one vendor. If I leave it blank, I get the entire listing. So I'm going to go ahead and hit enter, and very quickly, because I went to preview on screen, it gives me this text mode version of the report just for quick viewing, and I can page down through this report and see my totals. The other options I have for output are I can run to a grid viewer, I can send it via email, I can send it to an email through the server, I can send it out to a file if I want to create a tab delimited or a comma delimited file out there somewhere. I can bring it up in Excel or Word. I can bring it up in PDF or text, or I can send it to any one of my printers. So this is how you direct output. If I go to PDF viewer and I run this process, it gives me a chance to change the name if I want, and then it brings up the PDF version. And you can see this is what it looks like were you to send this to the printer. So you can see it runs by customer name, shows you the ID, the AP ID, the invoice number, and the buckets that we defined in that AP control screen when we first started. And I think the one I don't remember if the one I just put in was, who was that guy? Oh, it was 3. So this is the one we just put in, this 2214 for the $100. That's the one we just put on there. So it's showing up. So, I mean, there are then, once you get this, well, let me go through a couple more of the reports. Activity listings, items to be paid through a specified date, which is kind of a pre-checks processing report. Invoice register, accounts payable accrual listing. This one shows you what is currently in the accounts payable accrual listing, uninvoiced. But if you wanted to go back and look as of the end of last month, what my accrual listings were, you could use this one because this one's backdatable. And a distribution listing show all the accounts, cash requirements report. So there's 14 different accounts payable reports, like I said, and if there's something else you want, there's a report writer delivered with the system. The register reports, which is your GL interface reports, 1099 forms, check reports, check forms. We print on continuous form. We print on laser checks. We can do commission checks, and we can do blank stock laser checks, which means we're also printing the magnetic codes on them and the bank information on the check itself. Not many people do this, but there are enough people who do it, especially if they have multiple companies. They just keep blank stock in the printer and they send the jobs out. I do have a vendor inquiry I can look at and say, let me look at any one particular vendor. It shows me the address, it shows me the notes, the information, it shows me the list of all open APs as of right now. I can see the summary receipts by month and year. I guess I haven't done much with this person. Detail receipts, open orders, AP activity shows me open and or closed, all those contacts, contact logs, your vendor rating, all the information about the inquiry, about the vendor you might want to know. And then you get into checks. I can do check runs several ways. I can do hand checks, where I do checks one at a time. I enter a check number and I select the items to be paid and I pay them, and it prints the check and pays those items one at a time. I can also do a check run, and the way I do that is I go to our create pre-checks records procedure, select the output, company code, and I say I'm going to print this as of today's date. D is today's date if you ever want to use that. And I can say I'm going to either pick batch creation, which says pick all AP records due to be paid through a certain date. And don't let me choose them, just pick them all for me and tell me I'm gonna pay them all. Not very common anymore. Some people do that, but not a lot. Other people will come up here and say, let me see all vendors in a grid. It'll pop the grid and you can highlight the ones you want to pay. I'm going to uncheck that one. Edit. And you can highlight the ones you're going to pay and then say OK. And it displays them all here for you, so you don't have to enter them one at a time. And it shows you the amount you're going to pay on each one. If you wanted to partial pay this, you could change this to $250. So you could partial pay that. And this shows you the total amount you're going to pay. And then you run this process, which basically creates what we call pre-checks files. And it's going to create two pre-checks records, one for each vendor, pre-checks ID 24 and 25. And it's telling you you're going to have to print two checks for a total of $1,329. So it's giving you one more validation before you do anything. And the check run number 925 tells me what I'm going to pay. And then all I have to do is go to the checks.f2 process. 925 and my starting check number in that batch is 1192. And if I print this to, if I print this to PDF viewer, this would be printing on your check form. So this is what the check format looks like. We have stub, check, and we can do check on the top. Basically, we usually, if you've got enough checks forms on hand, we'll modify the program to hit your check form as opposed to you having to go out and get whole new check forms. So then this prints the check, and then if it looks good, you post them. And the reason we do it that way is there are times that printers jam or printers misfeed, and you want to stop the check run, you want to pull the checks out, and you want to start it over again. And you don't have to worry about voiding a whole ton of checks or redoing the whole process. You know, if you get 90 checks into a 100 check run, you can post those first 90 and just reprint the last 10. You don't have to worry about voiding the entire process. So we've tried to think ahead to all the bad things that could happen during a check run and deal with those for you. And then once they're paid, you're done. I mean, it closes the AP record, takes it off the open aging report. It shows on the record itself, on the AP record, which checks paid it and when, and you have a complete history of everything that's happened on that. And as I mentioned before, there's a bunch of checks. There's check registers and void check listing, stop pay, uncleared, cleared, check distribution listing. And then when you get down into the processes, you can post the checks. We have this check reassignment process because so many people found that they typed in the wrong check number and it started one check off. So what we do is we let you run this process to reassign all the check numbers and back them up or move them forward for you so that you don't have to worry about unposting everything and reposting it all. Create ACH, you can transmit the ACH. That's a two-step process because some people create the ACH file and then manually upload it to their bank. Other people want us to transmit it via FTP directly to their bank. And you can transmit a positive pay file to your bank as well. I know I kind of blazed through accounts payable here. It's not quite a training class. I don't expect you to be able to go off and use it right now, but hopefully I showed you enough to let you know what it's all about.